Good evening and welcome. My name is Kirby. I'm here with my dear friend, wonderful poet, Jim Johnstone. We're both here as part of the board of Icehouse Poetry. Jim, of course, is also the publisher of Ann Strother Press, who happens to be nominated for not one, but two BP Nickel nominations this year. Congratulations, Jim. That's wonderful, wonderful news. And we are celebrating new works collections from three extraordinary poets at Icehouse Poetry, and also three new chapbooks that have come out from Ann Strother Press. Poets that I'm hearing for the first time. I'm really thrilled about it. And I'm going to give a land acknowledgement and we're going to kick right into it. So we acknowledge that the land we are meeting on here in Toronto is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Hutchinson, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. Hi, Jim.
Hi, Kirby.
Good to see you.
It's great to be here with you.
I couldn't agree more. It's a pleasure. It's an absolute pleasure. I want to kick it off to you to introduce our first poet.
Thank you so much. I'm really happy to be here on behalf of Ann Strother and Icehouse. As Kirby mentioned, Ann Strother has two books up for the BP Nickel Award this year, and we're really proud of both Uba and Tolu. And we've reprinted their books actually. So if people are interested, there's a small sort of limited edition of these left for people who are interested in picking them up. We're going to start with some Ann Strother authors tonight. And our first author is Franco Cortese. This is the beautiful cover of his chapbook, as you'll see in his background when he comes to read. And I'll read his bio, and we'll bring him up for you. Franco Cortese is an experimental poet living in Thorold, Ontario. His poetry won the 2020 UNESCO Brock University Sustainability Poetry Prize, was longlisted for the 2019 CBC Poetry Prize, and has appeared in the Literary Review of Canada, the Malahat Review, Canadian Literature, the Capital Canada Review, and others. He's published quite a few chapbooks over the last few years, and his first full-length debut collection of poetry, Lip, is forthcoming from Penteract Press in 2021. Please welcome Franco.
Thank you so much for that intro, Jim. Really happy to be here and really looking forward to everybody's readings tonight. Before this started, I suggested to Jim that he sort of wing the pronunciation of the title of the chapbook. I would have had fun hearing what he came up with, but the technically correct pronunciation is Time Sooth, Sooth being Old Saxon for truth or reality, and Old Norse for stock or broth, and Time, which is the anglicized transcription of a Greek word meaning a valuing by which the price is fixed. But personally, I prefer to think of it as time sawed, because that's what it looks like. So the chapbook presents 31 micropoems, which limit themselves, in the case of the first half, to words that are etymologically related to their titles in either their literal or synonymized form. And in the case of the second half, to the truncated or untruncated, but otherwise unedited, verbatim literal definitions of their titles, as given by the online multilingual dictionary, Wiktionary.org. Together, the chapbook's poems attempt to distill the etymological and definitional underment of their titles into distilled yet fleeting droplets, essentially breaking words open to revel at their gooey and tenderly innards, as indeed we all should do with words. And I'll be reading a selection from both halves of the chapbook today. And I do believe that we'll have time for a very brief 45-minute contemplative intermission between the halves. Do I have that right, Jim?
Not at all.
Uh-huh. Okay, all right. Blasphemy. Also, very quick but important shout out to my boy Victor Hugo for providing the cover of the chapbook, as well as the backdrop that I'll be using for tonight's event. I miss you, Hughes. I suppose since time is already running thin, I should just get on with it. So without further ado, adieu, exeunt the poems. God, poured earth, burial mound, libation shoot, to call, invoke, sky shine. Human, ground atom, soiled grave, false dwarf, low vassal, buried apple. Soul, from the lake, belonging to the sea, deceased, surface moon, water sheet. Truth, derivation, honest oak, faithful copse, spear beam, firm shaft. Tree, faith war, wood nymph, stone fruit, hardened time, thick mother of the brain. Symbol, star wound, token creed, fossil tongue, ancient machine, compact testicle. Ice, isogenetic ire, estrus gisarm, hieroglyphic estrogen, temple slave chained to God, iron hero filled with holy metal. Algebra, reunion of broken parts, Arajab, vulgar pronunciation, bone setting, restoring, rebalancing. Gut, ruptured yarn, fetal ribbon, chordate music, vertebrate king, soothsayer by way of entrails. Sunday, diffraction ring, rotating opal, standing cause, light personified, a mock sun. God, the sequel, I guess. Cause of death, fortified crown, temple dancing girl, divine city script, clear day. Now I'd like to switch over to some poems for the second half, again, which differ from the first half in that they are composed of the truncated or untruncated literal verbatim definitions of their titular words. Wax. Candle body to kill, to record, to become the aging of the moon. To posthumously dedicate the next poem to last night, to the date November 3rd, as well as, I suppose, today and the coming days and weeks to come, with, of course, all of these standard disclaimers that the personaged therein are entirely fictitious. Any resemblance to real flesh is entirely coincidental. Wick, an exercise of authority, a narrow opening in the field, woven strip of cord to bend, to yield succession. Fall, the growing of time, a defect in ice, the hoisting of tackle, to die, to become prophecy. Snatch, to sob, pant, long for, to grasp and remove quickly, to take victory at the last moment, a competitive waiting event of Ulva. And the final poem that I'll read for you tonight, I'd like to retrospectively dedicate to you, Kirby, with love and just a pinch of cheek. It is called Cock. Cock, a boastful tilt of one's head, a friendly form of address among men. To turn the eye obliquely and partially close its lid. The circle at the end of the ring, a corruption of the word God used in oaths. That's it, folks. Time Sawed. Available for purchase today, anywhere that you buy books, poems, and other dead things. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Franco. It was really interesting to hear you read from those poems because I read them much more slowly and read them much more slowly when I read the book and sort of go through and savor them because they're complex and they have a lot of etymological depth. So thank you for that reading. And yeah, we'll get to our next author here, who is Elizabeth Mudenyo. This is With Both Hands. And I'd like to point out the beautiful, beautiful cover artwork by Nadja Robinson. We were very, very lucky to get it. You'll note that this book is square and a little bit bigger than the normal Anstruther chapbooks that we make. And that's because the formatting of Elizabeth's work necessitated it. You'll see, if I hold this up, how it really uses the full page. So yeah, this has been a very, very good selling chapbook for us, and we're really proud of it. So I'll bring Elizabeth to read by reading her bio. Elizabeth Mudenyo is a poet, artist, and arts manager based in Toronto, Canada. She was a fellow of the Poetry Foundation's 2018 Poetry Incubator and a participant in the 2020 Hurston Wright Poetry Weekend with Denez Smith, Diaspora Dialogue Short Film Form Mentorship Program, and the Dream Yards Radical Poetry Consortium. Her recent publications include Puntitude Magazine and Contemporary Verse 2. Please welcome Elizabeth.
Thank you so much, Jim. It's been a real pleasure to be published. This is my first poetry chapbook. And yeah, thank you to Anstruther Press. And yeah, the format is such that I can't really see who's here and who's in the audience. But thank you to my friends for showing up for me. I can feel it. I can feel that they're there. Yeah, so I'm just going to read a few poems from this collection. I love how she says her own name. With the full weight of her body, she pronounces, gives voice to the parts nobody touches. She starts inside, runs her tongue over the back of her teeth, taking stock and salt. Every word said, printed, or passed from mouth to mouth is mulled to pulp. She rewrites as we speak. I love how she looks at the camera, taking unsuspected onlookers inside her, candid and knowing, how her shoulders sit, how her hair is out, how oil mounts across on her forehead. Do you see how far her knees, how far her feet from the ground, are her teeth out, are her arms up? Does she press softness against herself? I am possessive. I hold on to or pin up my smile. I tie up my breath, keep the truth feet from the lens. Eyes off her, no pair wanders her seams, no pair tries to unearth. No mouth said. Her frame is an apology, a suggestion to dig up. Her body relents, contorts, shakes, covers ground just by moving. Her heart retorts, and yes, and yes, and yes. I love how she talks to herself in public, saying, I was so young, but I was not wrong. Grown enough now to know time moves when it wants. See, even heartbreak does so long. I arc towards her, bracketing a silence, interested in the conversations between women, how they extend towards each other, how they hold each other's gaze, each other's breaths, giving and taking and giving back. She returns her from object to subject. She witnesses and transcribes all the words. They make a map, go out again. See why she moves so wide. When told to be strong, we don't feel strong in abundance. Sometimes only our bones stand in defense and hold up the necessary dressing. Sometimes the smile is just rehearsal for when the soul comes back full. It is just seeking out water. You are digesting a bad meal, late picking up sleep. You were thinking of writing your friends to ask how the moon affected them. Something in your eyes is moving away. It is just seeking out flame. Permissions. You are allowed, without even asking what you are allowed. We can all live here, I say, to every part you can stay. I forget this. I, again, done with my body, only come when someone else invites me in. I know pedestals are unhealthy, yet suggest encasing with my skin. People are absorbed through pores all the time. Love could imprint. I could know the long way to my body. Okay, last poem, Universe. By all hands, you are a kind weaver. I'm asking for someone else. Can you set off a light, a flare, a shooting star, depending? I think even a flash could stir conscious. Can you blanket a night in good rest? That would make a day, wouldn't it? One barrel deep laugh. I have a friend who just needs one more person, someone to carry conversation, to pass it back, take walks, work out what is and what isn't. One good stretch could build something. Could you retell the pads of the fingers, the one about gentle landings? Universe, could you share the trick of unraveling? Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much, Elizabeth. What a joy. Oh, thank you. Thank you. It's so sweet to radiate with you. Tanya Bartel, I cannot tell you how much I've so enjoyed reading your book. It was such a pleasure. And it's a party I didn't want to see end. So it's a lovely thing to return to as well. Tanya Bartel's book is called Everyone at This Party. And one of my favorite little blurb reviews from Maisonneuve magazine is the collection is tough yet vulnerable, much like a friend insisting that she is fine through gritted teeth. Tanya Bartel holds an MFA from the University of British Columbia. Her poetry and nonfiction have appeared in numerous venues, including Geist, the Antigonus Review, and the American Journal of Medical Genetics. She lives in Pitt Meadows, BC. For the first time, it's a great pleasure to meet you and introduce you. Please welcome Tanya Bertel.
Thank you, Kirby. Hello from the West Coast. Thanks so much for coming. The poems in this book scan the outer suburbs of Vancouver, highlighting such themes as chance versus choice, fear, failure, and our obsession with alcohol. They accept the arbitrary nature of life and the demons that persist within. I'll be reading 3 poems. Everyone at this party. Look around. Everyone at this party is someone's horrible childbirth story. I'm either an expert or a one-trick pony. Either way, it's taken my whole life. Don't have a favorite cowboy, prefer freedom to the lasso. Crickets kick up their heels in the fullness of the exploding heat. I could hurl a boulder into this slough and it would be there after every current occupant on this planet is dead. Grass along the banks greens up, yellows down. Water, the most easily influenced substance, doesn't show its age. Fleeting dandelions that never end. It's a miracle, but we don't see it that way. Each new sunrise blinds us and we start over, the same as we were yesterday and the day before. Bitchy in the morning, angry to bed. After we die, people will say we lit up a room when we walked in. There's my second poem. There's a special style of humiliation that comes with getting older and fatter in a fishbowl profession like teaching, where those you work with are perpetually young and cool. Current phobia 3, gyrascophobia. Sprung from the hair salon with a smooth back-combed flip, I looked like Betty Draper in her fat face. Went in unkempt, came out kempt. Asked for sexy, messy beach hair, paid for a docile bob. Everyone is trying to tone me down. Inwardly, I scream. I conjure charisma, inventory my expired cosmetics caboodle, create infected, smoldering eyes. I believe in pipe dreams. I track advancements in infomercial face creams. I wear baggy shouldered blazers, the same black loafers with various dull skirts. I know all about healthy eating on paper. Kale and cauliflower, good. Mini donuts and wieners, bad. A skinny boy principal evaluated me once. He's stroking his silky chin hairs. He nitpicked while I bootlicked. For relief, I cobbled together a rhubarb cobbler. I climb out on the ledge, my resolve derelict. Sometimes I come in for Eggs Benedict. Sleep deprivation has become a thing, except in meetings, screenings. Dream of my dead friend, a little plump in a red pencil skirt, curled up with a glass of wine. She drinks forever in my head at night. Perspiring and coffeeed up, I roam the hallways, 90-degree angles in 90-degree heat. My deodorant is a liar. Lately, I want nothing as dangerous or deep as a night of unbroken sleep. Love bite. Now there's a term I connect with. Sideswipe, not as much. Current phobias. Allodoxophobia, fear of opinions. A class discussion is just me talking. Yet, acousticophobia, fear of noise, includes my voice. Atelophobia, dread of imperfection, cowers with atophobia, fear of ruin. Each morning, I wake anxious but cheerful, aware that sleep is death's rehearsal. My last poem. Big truck, no luck. April and the geese are yelling. Just my luck, stuck behind a gravel truck, chucking rocks off the back like a bad schoolboy. And me, late for school teachering. The sopping raccoon slumped against the concrete barrier, still there. I need my sleep, perchance to not dream about my father, earthquakes, my dead friend. Forgive me, sister. I won't tough love you in my dreams, where you're free to drink. I got paid today and the money's gone. Fuck, I'm stuck. I remember reading about highway hypnosis as a 70s child. How drivers will follow the car in front of them, rather than think for themselves. If everyone jumped off a bridge, would you follow? Why, yes. Yes, I would. If everyone was jumping down to California. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Tanya. Our next author is Chris Hutchison. This is his In the Vicinity of Riches, which I had the pleasure of editing for Icehouse. It was a real pleasure because I've followed Chris's career as a fan for many years, and he's one of my favorite Canadian poets. It was also a pleasure because it was a difficult book to edit. It was a challenge because these are challenging poems. And I think this is really a mid-career poet at the height of his powers. So if you haven't checked out Chris's work, I can wholeheartedly recommend reading it. Chris Hutchison's poems, stories, and essays have appeared in numerous literary journals and anthologies in Canada and internationally. He's the author of 4 previously published books of poetry, including A Brief History of the Short-Lived, which was a finalist for the Acorn Plantos Awards, and the speculative autobiographical verse novel Jonas in Frames. He teaches creative writing at MacEwan University in Edmonton, Alberta. Please welcome Chris.
Hey, thanks, Jim, and hi everybody out there. And it's a real pleasure to be able to read with folks. I was looking forward to traveling to Toronto and going to Knife Fork Books one day. I really hope to see you all in person. So I'll read 3 poems. A lot of this book was written in the U.S. I lived in the U.S., taught there for about a decade, and it's kind of looking through the book today, thinking about where we are in history and the situation down south. It's almost as if I wrote this book for this very occasion. But so I'll start with I lived in Houston for about 5 years, and this is a poem that I wrote in Houston called "Between Our Faith in Houston and the Moon." We lapse into dreams of future freedom, the dusk spinning out threads of gold. I think coins of light, but say the price of gas is endless miles of sunburnt fog. Then slump half conscious en route to Galveston. Now the glutted rills of rain-tilled earth that grow green as garlic tendrils along the evening's spit, and which are spattered with fire, might one day look like progress. But if that Apollo mission was a hoax, let's admit the rift between our faith in Houston and the moon is just a lover's quarrel over the small print of our next suicide pact. Detached yet brazenly self-evident, these stars, my excellent good Texans, are just punctuation marks loosed from the language of our petrochemical tracts. As we ourselves are lost in dreams of future freedom, either driving through a metropolis where all roads lead back in, or slumped, half-conscious, en route to the pleasure pier that struts from the salt edge of Galveston. And this next poem I wrote very close to 4 years ago. And it's simply called 2017. It's always the age after the golden age, or just before. My unpublished manuscripts flood with fears of rainbows, crows, and self-abnegation. To stay sane, I fold old drafts into paper boats I set afloat, then aflame on our governor's reflecting pool, fanning the rippling orange sails with my breath. Like swallowing fire, then spitting out tax forms, shellacked and flammable finish is how I describe it, this so-called life of the mind. But it's living the age preceding the age to end all ages I fear most, to never stop wondering whether there's time left to stop, to start over again. In my unwritten memoirs, first rain, then hail pelts down from an anvil-shaped thunderhead. God's green earth churns, liquefies, freezes shut. Once, without language, we were infinite. So goes my thinking on nights I've gone out to piss poems and drunk, looping cursive all over our governor's snow-sheeted lawn. Once, in a childish dream, instead of God's angel, I met a crow-shaped hole in the sky, through which the word crow came blackly falling. And I awoke, suicidally alive to the Anthropocene's burgeoning late-style aesthetic, and I became ungovernable then. And I'll end with a poem that leaves kind of the American political and social landscape behind him. We go to the day an elephant walked across the River Thames in 1814, and this is based on what used to happen when the Thames froze over. There were these frost fairs, and folks would go out onto the river and sell wares and entertain one another and drink, and 1814 was the last time this happened. The day an elephant walked across the River Thames. I'm certain that morning I heard wasps drowning beneath each floating sunlit surface. The billowing, high-peaked tents staked virgin space as if they were the early outposts of an empire on the rise. Here was a scene nothing in Chaucer or Blake or my continental tours had prepared me for. How unlike the bored bewitchment I'd glimpsed in that pigeon-eyed chancellor of the exchequer, his gaze drifting out across the ice-locked Thames, now white as a mirror mildewed with steam. Toward the Blackfriars Bridge, where sundry Londoners miraculously stood, swilling gin mixed with wormwood, inside the honeyed smoke of roasting oxen. I remember questioning my senses while testing the urge to skate along that entrepreneurial shore, to escape, as it were, the trick of my next life, how it should begin and when. In the distance, draped in icicles, St. Paul's dome appeared, a popish embarrassment. In ecstasy below, the tents rippled out in their fairy rings, blistering against a frost that had grappled with the river god and won. At the far edge of Europe, on an island now the center of a new, unreasoning, mechanized might, the chancellor shut his eyes to pray. Everywhere, the sun was hewing wasps from the amber of its own desire to be restored. And now I'm almost certain I'd just begun to step onto that brittle stage, one last act of Napoleonic verve, the morning when it happened, when what occurred, occurred. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Chris. Such a beautiful book. And if you haven't noticed, Icehouse puts out really, really pretty books. The cover of yours and of Tanya's book. I know, Jessie, it's our second date. I thought we'd celebrate. And I wanted to give away a copy of this book because I love it so much. And if you DM me at Knifework Book on our Twitter site, if you DM me and tell me the title of Jessie's book, the first person that does that, I'm going to gift you a copy of this lovely book. And it's really great to see you again. I'll introduce you, okay? Jessie Jones grew up in the prairies, spent a decade on Vancouver Island, and now resides in Montreal. Her writing has appeared in CV2, Filling Station, Lemon Hound, Manola Review, Prism International, The Puritan, Art Poetry Magazine, Body, and Poetry London UK, among others. Jones' chapbook, Nix, was published by Desert Pets Press in 2017. Her poetry has been shortlisted for the Malahat Review's Open Season Poetry Award, ARC Poetry Magazine's Poem of the Year contest, and Prism International's Poetry Contest. The Fool is her debut collection. Please join me in welcoming Jessie Jones.
Thanks so much, Kirby. It's so nice to be introduced by you. I wish that you could just follow me around and introduce me to strangers. That would be amazing. Thanks so much to you and Jim both for hosting, and to Icehouse for coordinating everything. And thank you so much to the other readers. It's been so great to hear you read, and like such a welcome point of focus after yesterday. I'm going to read 3 poems from the book, the first of which is called Saint Teen, and I wrote it after I was encountering and reading about a lot of religious art featuring, like teenage saints, and sort of wondering about how my snotty teenage self might fare when confronted with the divine. Spoiler alert, not great. Anyway, this is called Saint Teen. The voice says to devour my own throat. Goodness knows I try to split and divide and return to myself still whole, not swollen or wrung dry. Find it all holy at the time. Mostly I'm drawn to the possibility of my own hagiography. Like, how will they paint me? Under the prosthetic grasp of a deity, I thrive. My soprano glides above the others in choir with a virtuous clarity, songbird longing and hunger, a girl with purpose and perfect pitch. My nails grow, my complexion glows, but it never quite sticks. I swat at the voice when I'm bored or hungry, which is all the time, and the voice is mine, or indistinguishable from the slightly nasal hall monitor telling me to shower, gross, or advising me to turn down rides from strangers no matter the inclement weather. Between thighs and boys and day and nighttime cleansing routines, it can't get a command in edgewise. Sometimes I feel a warm glow rustling around me like a gold boa, but even love is a threat to my sovereignty. The only voice I want in my ear is one saying it doesn't deserve me. This next one is called Perfect Continuous Future. You will have been molding autobiography, warily, quietly, absenting a fatherless mayhem everyone assumed would finish you. You are going to have been sorry that you did not agree more with his blistered way. Barroom voce, splekesang. Know him better before his body is born luminously away in the mere act of saying. And having sat at the foot of his emptied place, you will have been cleaning the pail for days, your hands drier than asphalt, arranging bloody tissues into horrible boutonnieres, rephrasing fractured scales into a syncopated melody, a single key ringing as if it hoped to open a door. This is the last one that I'll read, and it's called Resolution. So thanks again for being here. 2 terrific tits and a backpack full of bathtub gin. Happy New Year, you swift kick. This time I will love everything. No more existential cellar doors where with one clumsy stripe, with one clumsy swipe, I reprise the bear trap of a life my ankle has been grating in. I mean to love everyone and let Grace Kelly off with a warning. Grow to love her amethyst dress shining in the cerulean room. How the breadth of her shadow, layers of tulle, rolls in wakes, a sea change of shades. Vacant damson, seltzer gray, sycophant green. This year, a new effect in my skin called hyacinth, mixed with broom's sincere toxicity. This month, I will drink to my own name, to the acerbic angle of switchbacks, to the plosive bulbs underfoot. Today, I'll rise through the Cascadian mist as it salts my hair a calcified white. And by tonight, I will be the closest thing to synesthetic delirium and Barbara Stanwyck in a blonde wig. My fury will come through so true as to seem artful, perfectly tailored and fit for twilight. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Jessie. Jim, are you on with me or?
I'm here, Kirby.
Oh, I was just double checking. I was just going to say, well done. What a splendid night.
Well, I think we should mention that Tracy de Boer was scheduled to read tonight. She's having internet problems and wasn't able to make it, unfortunately. This is her chapbook, maybe basically, and I thought I'd read the first poem in it since she wasn't here. Tracy, we miss you, and this is Sum of All Parts to close out our evening. From her skin, she cut triangles. Arranged the pieces for a collage she called Growing. Planted eyelashes in earth, prayed they might sprout come spring. Saved her blood in jars, kept frozen under the stairs. Her baby hair in Ziploc bags, dark curls enclosed in clear plastic. Though she never left anything valuable where someone might find it.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Did you want to take us home, Kirby?
I just want to say, I know that these chapbooks are available at anstrutherpress.com. And I also know that you can find the Icehouse poetry books at gooselane.com or wherever you go and find your poetry. Please support independence. And thanks so much for joining us tonight. What a pleasure, poets. It was wonderful to be in your company, and thanks for being here, and thanks for your words. Have a good night, everybody. Thank you. Woo!
Thank you all.
Thank you all.